Good morning. Today we are going to talk about Chaucer, his life and works. I'm Dr. Jitin. Chaucer's literary genius not only transformed the status of the English language but also elevated it to the level of art, thought, and social critique. Through his works, English emerged from the shadow of Latin and French and became a vehicle of poetic and intellectual impression. Chaucer lived during a time of tremendous social, linguistic, and political transformation, the late 14th century, when England was shifting from medieval to early modern sensibilities. His writing reflect that vibrant period, combining humor, irony, moral insight, and a profound awareness of human complexities. Let's talk about early life and his background. Geoffrey Chaucer was born in London in 1340 into a family of prosperous merchant. His father, John Chaucer, was a wine merchant. His mother, Agnes Copton, came from a well-to-do background. Thanks to his family's social connection, young Chaucer entered in the service of Elizabeth de Borough, Countess of Ulster. This gave him an early exposure to artistic culture and country life that would shape his worldview and literary themes. Later, Chaucer's career evolved through a range of roles: courtier, diplomat, and civil servant. He served under King Edward III, Richard II, and even Henry IV. During the Hundred Years' War, he was captured in France but ransomed by Edward III, a mark of royal favor. His marriage to Philippa de Roet, lady in waiting to the Queen and sister to Catherine Swynford, later Duchess of Lancaster, brought him even closer to the court circle. These experiences enriched his understanding of class, politics, and human condition, insights that animate his poetry. Thus, Chaucer was not merely a writer secluded from the world, he was an active participant in the currents of political and social life, a trait that makes his work both worldly and profound. Let's talk about major phases of Chaucer's career. Chaucer's literary career can be broadly divided into three phases: the French, the Italian, and the English, corresponding to his exposure to different literary traditions. Let's talk about his French phase. French phase has the influence of courtly French poetry upon his early writings. Chaucer's early works, the Book of the Duchess, Parliament of Fowls, Annelida, and Arcite, and The House of Fame, reveals a strong influence of French love allegory, especially from Roman de la Roche. The Book of Duchess is an allegory mourning to the death of Blanche, Duchess of Lancaster. Through allegory, dream vision, and courtly diction, Chaucer fused personal grief with literary and artistry. Parliament of Fowls represents a satirical vision of love and courtship set in dream framework. It is one of the earliest poems to associate Saint Valentine's Day of romantic love. His The House of Fame displayed Chaucer's self-awareness as poet and his interest in fame, memory, and the nature of literature itself. In these early writings, we can see Chaucer's gift of psychological observations and his ability to balance irony and sympathy. Let's talk about his second phase of literary career, the Italian phase. After his diplomatic travels to Italy, Chaucer encountered the works of Dante, Petrarch, and Boccaccio. Their works greatly influenced Chaucer's writing. Their influence is most visible in Troilus and Cressida, a tragic love story set during the Trojan War. It is a masterpiece of psychological realism, exploring the complexity of human emotion with an insight unprecedented in English poetry. Chaucer's portrayal of Troilus' inner conflict and Cressida's moral ambiguity shows his deep understanding of human nature. Now, the third phase, the English phase. This phase is considered as mastery and maturity of Chaucer's literary career. This phase culminates the greatest work of the Canterbury Tales, an unfinished collection of stories told by a group of pilgrims traveled to the shrine of St. Thomas Becket at Canterbury. Each pilgrim represents a distinct social type: the knight, the miller, the wife of Bath, the partner, the parson, and many others, collectively painting a vivid portrait of 14th century English society. Chaucer's use of diverse genres, romance, fable, moral fables. The third phase, that is English phase, this phase is considered as mastery and maturity of Chaucer's literary career. This phase culminates in his greatest work, The Canterbury Tales, an unfinished collection of stories told by a group of pilgrims traveling to the shrine of St. Thomas Becket at Canterbury. Through the pilgrims' voices, Chaucer created a microcosm of medieval life filled with humor, hypocrisy, wisdom, and vitality. Let's talk about his literary significance and impact. Chaucer's literary significance lies not only in his creative mastery but in his linguistic and cultural revolution. At a time when Latin was the language of learning and French the language of courtly culture, Chaucer chose to write English, specifically the London dialect of Middle English, thereby legitimizing it as medium for art and intellect. The language and style. Chaucer's decision to write in English helped to standardize and enrich the language. His vocabulary absorbed French and Latin elements, and in his rhythmic experimentation, particularly his use of iambic pentameter, laid the groundwork for the later development of English words, culminating in his work of Shakespeare and Spenser. Realism and characterization. His characters are lifelike, individualized, and psychologically nuanced. Whether it is the worldly wife of Bath or the hypocritical partner, each pilgrim in the Canterbury Tales is drawn with keen observation and dramatic vitality. Social vision and satire. Chaucer's work mirrored the tension of medieval society, the corruption of the clergy, the ambitions of the middle class, and the gender dynamics of his time. Yet his satire is never bitter. It is tempered by humor and human sympathy. He exposes human folly, but also delights in human diversity. Narrative techniques. Chaucer was pioneer of multiple narration. In the Canterbury Tales, the stories are not only diverse in content but also in tone and style, reflecting the unique voices of the teller. This polyphonic narrative structure anticipates the complexity of later novelistic form. Influence and legacy. Chaucer's influence extended far beyond his century. His successors, known as the Chaucerians, poet like John Lydgate, Thomas Heckley limited his themes and style. In the Renaissance, Spenser admired his allegory, Shakespeare borrowed his plot and characters, and Dryden and Pope modernized his tales. His burial in Westminster's Abbey Poets' Corner was both an humor and symbol of his enduring literary tradition. Conclusion. To conclude, Geoffrey Chaucer stands as a monumental figure whose art humanized the English language and democratized literature. Through his vision and ordinary life's speech and humor of common people found expression in poetry. He transformed English from a provincial dialect into literary medium of European stature. As we proceed to study the Canterbury Tales in our next classes, let us remember that Chaucer's genius lies not merely in his mastery of form, but in his deep and abiding understanding of humanity. Thank you.